The current Environmental Assessment Act, it was passed in 2002, so we've had a fair amount of time since then to learn about what's working and what's not within our environmental assessment process. A lot has changed since then. Community members are more engaged with respect to developments in their communities. Indigenous nations, there's been a lot of new case law and international law. Industries have changed and evolved since 2002. It was just really necessary at this time to revisit our EA process and make sure that it was reflecting the world that we live in now in British Columbia.
Over the years, there had been a number of concerns raised by Indigenous people about how environmental assessments were done on major projects in the province of British Columbia. So the Environmental Assessment Office, they engaged with Indigenous groups in different ways. There were 4 regional workshops where 60 Indigenous groups were represented. There was also 2 province-wide forums held in Vancouver where 70 Indigenous nations participated. And there was also direct engagements with 67 nations having one-to-one interactions with the Environmental Assessment Office.
The environmental assessment revitalization happened on a very fast timeline. And one of the things that the Environmental Assessment Office did extremely well was they were able to take the complex process, boil down the parts of it, put it in graphics, put it in charts, put it in timelines that we as a committee were able to make sense of very well. And that in turn was able to be used as part of the public outreach materials.
Stakeholder engagement was really critical to the success of this project. To do that, we set 3 goals. One was enhancing public confidence, the second was advancing reconciliation, and the third was about making clear pathways to sustainable project approvals. We met for over 75 hours in the space of 6 weeks, and the co-chairs drafted a report at the end that had 33 recommendations for us to move forward with.
The Environmental Assessment Revitalization Project, I would say, has been a tremendous success. There's a new early engagement stage. There's to be consensus seeking on the development of information, the development of project conditions, and the recommendation on the decision of whether that project should proceed or not. The legislation, it provides a really good balance of the different objectives that this government had in revitalizing the EA legislation. And one of those primary objectives was to support and advance reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, which I think it does.
Part of the challenge was the timeline that we were working under. We worked really hard, our team worked really effectively together, and we worked with operations division in our office. We created a bit of a cross-agency team to leverage everybody's experience in doing environmental assessments and get some more horsepower to just really ensure that we had the manpower and the skills and the expertise to deliver what we had to do in the time that we had. It was February when we announced publicly our process by which we would do the engagement and come up with our proposed changes to the Act. And the Act was introduced in November and passed by the end of November. So that was a timeline of only 10 months to do a tremendous amount of engagement.